might curb inflation. Now, inflation is a very severe problem in our country. It can actually cripple entire nations. For example, Venezuela and China have been completely destroyed by inflation, and inflation is just the swift decline in value of money, and it actually depends on like the economy of other countries that you purchase things from, and so there's no easy way really to stop inflation in your country without also stopping inflation in other countries as well. So the whole thing is there's several ways to do this, one of which is the monetary policy, another the supply side policy, and also the fiscal policy. All of these are just big words for not having money, really. The monetary policy focuses mainly on raising interest rates in like banks and stuff for loans, which it doesn't really stop or fix inflation, it just slows the flow a little bit because there's less money in the system going out to the people. It's mainly kept in banks, which, as I said, definitely doesn't stop inflation, but it'll slow the flow. And the only issue with this is, even though it's easiest to stomach, the rate of inflation has to be no higher than 3 to 4%, and for an example, America has 8.5%, which is a lot. And the problem with that is it won't fix it, it'll just continue being a problem. The next idea is the supply side policy, which focuses mainly on increasing competition between businesses, which helps, which limits demand, whereas without it, if everything was purchased at the same store, it'd make it far easier for prices to rise, which would affect inflation and probably make it go up. Now, this isn't super applicable to America because America does not have any true monopolies, and there are also laws to prevent monopolies from arising. In other countries it might work, but in America it's probably just not a very good choice. Finally, there's the fiscal policy, the one that everyone hates because it raises taxes, and nobody wants to raise taxes. And it sounds really like a really terrible idea, but it's actually somewhat decent. It would still function because with rising income tax, there's a good chance that sales tax would no longer be integrated, which would be fun. And then while income takes away from your gross pay, you will no longer have to worry about the tax while buying your Dawn dish soap. This works for a similar reason to the monetary policy, which is just less money in the hands of the people and flying throughout the system. However, the main drawback is that you would have to trust your government, that they're not going to just use the money to a ludicrous degree, which we all know they will because it's the government. And so you may be thinking, oh no, there's no way to fix inflation, but have no fear. There's my policy. Okay, just hear me out, okay? The incineration policy. So the incineration policy is very simple. Everyone knows that there are hundreds of thousands of dollars a year brought in from illegal drug busts, right? So anyone who's selling drugs illegally, right? They make a lot of money, and then the police find them, and they have all this money, and it's a problem. So just once every 10 years, we burn it all, right? I know that most of the time this money goes to fund the police, which it does, but the government puts a severe limit on that and only lets the police force to take a very small percentage of it before they take the rest and just put it back in to our economy system. And it's also kept as evidence for at least 7 years, but it does eventually go back out to the people, which limits our abilities. So, while yes, the money goes to the police first, the government heavily limits the amount. And it just goes back into the economy or to the government's pockets. So therefore, I feel that every 10 years, we should burn all the money we get from drug busts. There you go.